hili na kuinuka kwa umoja kama Wakenya. Na tutakaposhinda janga hili, uzuri wa nchi yetu wa kipekee utakuwepo kutusisimua tena. Kwa mara nyingine, tutarejelea yale tunayoyapenda. Tutaelekea kwenye fuo za bahari kujivinjari na tutarudi mbugani kuona wanyama wetu wa kifahari. Bila shaka, tutaanza tena kuunda kumbukumbu za kipekee na wapendwa wetu kwa kutangamana na kula vyakula vitamu. Tutajumuika na marafiki huku tukishangilia timu tuzipendazo. Tutaenda matembezi mbugani na tutajiburudisha tena kwenye mikahawa ya burudani. Pamoja tutashinda janga hili na tutarejelea yale tuyapendayo kwa dhati. Magical Kenya, uzuri wetu wa kipekee bado unatungoja.
Yeyote aliye na kinga hafifu mwilini yuko katika hatari ya kuambukizwa COVID-19. Hao ni kama watu ambao wanaishi na magonjwa kama vile virusi vya HIV, kansa, TB, kisukari, miongoni mwa magonjwa mengine. Lazima wazingatie matibabu ili kuboresha kinga mwilini. Lazima wahakikishe wamepata dawa ipasavyo. Tembelea kliniki yako au kituo cha afya kilicho karibu nawe kwa maelezo kamili kuhusu jinsi ya kupata dawa. Pia wasaidie jamaa na rafiki kupata dawa. Dumisha mawasiliano nao na ufuate mwongozo wa kiafya kutoka kwa kituo cha afya ili kujikinga na virusi vya korona. Pata habari kuhusu COVID-19 kupitia vyanzo vinavyoaminika. Piga 719 au bonyeza *719#. COVID-19 inazuilika. Jilinde, linda familia na jamii. Ujumbe huu umeletwa kwako na serikali ya Kenya.
Well, good evening. Kenya gravitates towards the red zone after the highest ever single-day infection of 307 COVID-19 cases are recorded. While this coming amid assurances from opposition leader Raila Odinga that he is in good health after his trip abroad to seek medical attention. Well, on matters COVID-19, well, the number of cases tested in the last 24 hours stand at 3,591, while the total number of confirmed cases stand at 307, while the total number of recoveries in the last 24 hours stand at 50, while one person succumbed to the disease. Now, the first case in the country was recorded on March 13th, and the total number of samples tested so far stand at 173,427. The total number of confirmed cases so far in the country stand at 6,673, while the total number of recoveries so far stand at 2,089, while the total number of fatalities stand at 149. Well, good evening. Welcome to Channel 1 News Hour. For now, we take a look at the highlights.
We tested 3,591 samples over the last 24 hours, and of these, 307 returned positive.
Spike in infections. Kenya records its highest number of COVID-19 cases in a single day as 307 people test positive for the virus.
We have also been reliably informed this morning by the doctors that the peak is likely to come in September.
Containing coronavirus, Education Cabinet Secretary hints at the possibility of schools not reopening in September. Embracing technology, Judiciary officially launches its electronic filing system. And reviving tourism, World Travel and Tourism Council awards Kenya the Safe Travel stamp amid preparations to reopen the tourism industry. Welcome to the broadcast. Remember, you can interact with us on our Twitter handle at KBC Channel 1 or at Jackie Wambiru. Sign language interpreter this evening is Raila Odinga. My name is Jackie Wambiru. Now let's kick off where the country on Wednesday confirmed the highest number of COVID-19 cases in a single day after 307 people tested positive for the virus. The latest numbers coming as the Ministry of Health expressed concern over what it said was blatant disregard of COVID-19 containment measures by a section of Kenyans on a day that the country's total caseload surged to 6,673 with 149 fatalities.
The invisible enemy, that is the coronavirus, continues to ravage the country, with more cases being confirmed despite efforts by the Ministry of Health to flatten the curve. On Wednesday, the country recorded the highest number of positive cases in a single day since the first case was reported 111 days ago.
We tested 3,591 samples over the last 24 hours, and of these, 307 returned positive. This number now pushes our caseload of those confirmed positive to 6,673.
The Ministry of Health partly attributing the obtaining situation to laxity by a number of Kenyans and the high number of samples being tested.
It requires personal responsibility by all Kenyans. At this particular time, we take that extra mile to protect ourselves and protect others, so that when those numbers come and the surge comes, our facilities will be able to deal with.
And with the home-based care protocol gaining momentum, the ministry says that so far, 120 people have been discharged after full recovery out of the 600 under the program.
Some of the challenges we face with home-based care, of course, it tends to apply more to those in the middle class and upper middle class, because those who come from the informal settlements, it is practically impossible to undertake home-based care.
The disease posing a greater danger to frontline health workers, with 186 having been infected so far, comprising of 102 women and 84 men. Out of the 307 positive cases recorded over the last 24 hours, Nairobi had 154 cases, Mombasa 38, Machakos 33, Kiambu 20, Narok 20, Kajiado 14, while Busia had 10 cases.
We have seen several developed countries, such as USA, Australia, South Korea, Germany, and others, opening up their economies sooner than when it should have been, and then suddenly experiencing major spikes in COVID-19 infections.
50 patients have been discharged, bringing the total number of those who have recovered from the disease to 2,089, with one more person succumbing to the virus. With the country having recorded 307 new coronavirus cases, the highest number to be recorded in the country in a single day, the Ministry of Health says that the laxity being exhibited by a section of Kenyans is to blame for the high figures, hence the need to adhere to the containment measures in place. Nancy Okware, Channel 1 News.
And on matters education, schools across the country are unlikely to be reopened in September this year. Education Cabinet Secretary George Magoha stated that the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic in the country may be recorded in September, hence making it riskier for learning to resume. Wednesday morning at the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development in Nairobi, education stakeholders led by Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha met early to deliberate on modalities of reopening learning institutions in the country. Magoha said projections by the Ministry of Health on coronavirus infections do not augur well for plans to resume learning in September.
Cast the options that are according to what is happening in the country as at the moment. As you are aware, a few days ago, we had a peak of 278. And since that time, we are in the hundreds. We have also been reliably informed this morning by the doctors that the peak is likely to come in September. And by the grace of God, perhaps taper down around January.
The 100% transition objective compounds the situation with overcrowding in classes, negating the social distancing directive.
Every child went to school using the 100% mop-up transition. Therefore, the children are at school and the schools are a bit congested. And that whatever is going to determine whether we open or not would depend on whether social distancing can be achieved in school.
Without divulging much, Magoha said their recommendations will be made known through the President's address on the nation on Kenya's COVID-19 status come Monday, 6th of July.
So we have reached a consensus. It is not my place to tell you which consensus we have reached. We are consulting. This is an all-inclusive process, so that by the time His Excellency the President makes a pronouncement about one or two things, it will be an informed pronouncement.
Reporting for Channel 1 News, I'm Jackie Wambiru. Still on COVID-19, the government has inaugurated a 10 billion shillings phase 2 of the Kazi Mtaani initiative, which aims to cushion Kenyans mainly residing in informal settlements from the adverse effects of COVID-19. The development coming as members of the clergy sustain calls on the government to reopen places of worship.
Places of worship have remained closed since the government announced strict measures aimed at containing the spread of COVID-19. The radical measures now faulted by the clergy, who say they could be counterproductive. Alliance of Registered Churches of Kenya says the government should work closely with the church, which they say is a pillar when it comes to supplementing government efforts in dealing with emerging challenges during the pandemic.
We feel this virus is being used as anti-church, therefore hindering our freedom of corporate worship and prayers, which is essential to the nation at a time like this. We wait with great expectation for the Interfaith Council that was established by His Excellency the President to take views and create guidance and protocols of the gradual opening of churches.
Sentiments echoed by Dagoretti sub-county pastors who maintain that places of worship should be opened as they provide refuge for those hurting. They say since coronavirus was reported in the country, domestic violence, teenage pregnancies, suicide and killings have been on the rise, noting that the church could help in addressing the emerging challenges.
In the recent past, much has been reflected the essentiality of the church, since church is a counseling center, church is a transformational center, church is a healing place, church is not a political vehicle to be assumed that it can be used on the same purpose.
Yes.
In the meantime, the government has inaugurated the 10 billion shillings Phase 2 of Kazi Mtaani initiative, which aims to cushion Kenyans mainly residing in informal settlements from the effects of COVID-19. While unveiling the initiative at the Kenyatta International Conference Center, Housing Principal Secretary Charles Hinga said the program will mainly cater for wages with successful Kenyans earning a uniform daily stipend of 455 shillings.
The money that we have, the 10 billion, is largely going to pay wages. And you see in Phase 2, we have said we are going to pay uniform 455 shillings. Why are we going to 455? Because we want to stretch that 10 billion to cover as many homes as possible.
Elsewhere, all Kisumu County staff at Prosperity House will undergo COVID-19 testing as a strategy to contain the spread of the pandemic. Area Governor Professor Anyang' Nyong'o said the move was in line with the Ministry of Health directive as Kenya struggle with the disaster which has killed thousands across the globe.
We are therefore entering a stage where we are going to take even more drastic measures to deal with the health aspect of COVID-19. That is to establish more accurately the extent of positivity of COVID-19 among us.
Beatrice Gatonyeng-Etich, Channel 1 News.
And on emerging issues due to COVID-19, health workers are threatening to down their tools to push the government to address their welfare amid rising COVID-19 cases among health workers. Speaking during a joint health professionals union briefing, the Kenya National Union of Nurses Secretary General Seth Panyako said all negotiations with the government appears to have hit a dead end.
During the daily COVID-19 briefing, Dr. Patrick Amoth put at 186 the number of healthcare workers who have tested positive for COVID-19. Healthcare workers through the union say the government is yet to effect the risk allowance and also put in place a health insurance cover to cushion them from the pandemic.
We are going on strike. We no longer want to go for those miracle meetings in the Ministry of Labour and Social Protection that are not yielding anything. We want the president to directly be in charge of the Ministry of Health and crack the whip.
During a joint statement by health practitioners drawn from Kenya Union of Clinical Officers, Kenya Union of Nurses, Kenya National Union of Nutritionists and Dietitians, among others, said the government has been insincere in dealing with the welfare of health workers in the country, even as COVID-19 cases continue to surge.
And it's very unfortunate that even as per now, as we talk, we have not been able to finalize on the issues of life insurance. That is what happens to that healthcare worker who is going to lose their life in line of duty as they struggle to protect Kenyans. And that is a question that must be addressed with finality.
The healthcare workers who say they are in full support of the reopening of the economy, save for churches and schools, however, say the government must employ more health professionals to enhance the country's capacity to deal with the pandemic.
And these health workers can be able to go to where the patients are. Waende nyumbani, kwenye wagonjwa wako, wawatibie huko. And this is what happens in China. That is what we are proposing. Reopen the economy, protect the vulnerable. How do you protect them? Employ more health workers, let the vulnerable stay at home, and let the health workers go and treat them there at home. Number 2.
The health professionals noted that there has been a decline in vaccinations for other diseases, meaning there could be a resurgence of diseases that had previously been eradicated. Caroline Kamar reporting for Channel 1 News.
Now, President Uhuru Kenyatta held a meeting with leaders drawn from Western Kenya to discuss development projects in the region. The head of state and leaders discussed the ongoing government efforts to revive the ailing sugar sector, especially Mumias and Nzoia sugar factories. President Kenyatta assured the leaders of the government's commitment to reviving the sector by fast-tracking the implementation of the Sugar Task Force report as part of the revival process. The government, through the Ministry of Agriculture, has already published the sugar sector regulations and is in the process of strengthening the legal framework to anchor sector reforms. And on the corridors of justice, the High Court has adjourned the judgment of a case where 3 persons have appealed their conviction in a 283 million shilling cemetery scandal. The court adjourned delivering its judgment to next Wednesday after one of the accused was reported to be in quarantine after contracting COVID-19 disease. Meanwhile, the judiciary has launched an electronic filing system as it seeks to deal with the challenge of backlog of cases that has been blamed for delayed justice.
The electronic filing system will encompass e-case registration, case search and e-payment, which will help in case tracking, increase productivity, efficiency and save time. The system will also allow petitioners pay and service court summons to defendants electronically.
SJT emphasizes the improvement in the speed and quality of service delivery in the judiciary by increasing efficiency and effectiveness at the individual and system levels. One of our primary initiatives was the design and adoption of a digital strategy that sought to boost not only judicial operations, but also enterprise resource planning capabilities in order to assist in our administration functions.
We now have the case tracking system in 60 of our courts, and the rest of the courts will soon follow. The case tracking system incorporates the e-diary and the daily course lists. Our sexual offenders register is also electronic, among other operational efficiency gains that we have made.
The long and short of it is that the development of the e-filing solution that His Lordship, the Chief Justice, is launching today is a product of a very consultative process that considered key inputs from users and stakeholders.
The electronic system will enable prosecutors, defense teams and litigants file keys from outside the courtroom.
Although the pandemic has brought about the faster adoption of technology-driven court processes, we also recognize that the adoption of technology is part of the judiciary's digital strategy, as enshrined in the Service Delivery Agenda 2017-2021, which is geared towards re-engineering the court processes through the adoption of ICT.
And the judgment in a case where the late former Nairobi Town Clerk John Gako and his co-accused Sami Kirui, Mary Ngethe and Alexander Musinga are seeking to have their convictions overturned has been adjourned. Justice John Onyego adjourned the judgment to the 8th of July this year after receiving information that one of the applicants in the case is under quarantine.
Having been put on self-quarantine allegedly on 19th June 2020, 14 days lapses on 3rd July 2020. Given 3 days more for re-examination, I will deliver judgment on 8th July 2020.
The accused persons had appealed after a lower court found them guilty in a 283 million shilling cemetery scandal. Meanwhile, former Sports Cabinet Secretary Hassan Wario on Wednesday appeared before Magistrate Elizabeth Juma in a case where he, alongside other sports officials, are charged with a 55 million shillings Rio Olympics scandal. Haron Komen, Arab Soy, Francis Kinyile Paul, Patrick Kimathin Kabo, and Richard Ikai are among those being cross-examined in the defense hearing. Indeed, this comes at a time when the spotlight is now being shone on corruption cases. And as you can see behind me is the Chief Magistrate Francis Andai addressing a number of magistrates and other staff that work here at the Milimani in locals to continue adhering to the COVID-19 measures that have been put in place as they continue to expedite cases that have already been filed here at the Milimani locals. Reporting for Scales of Justice, I'm Serafina Robbie.
Well, thank you so much, Sarafina Robi, for that report. Now, on that note, we take a short break here on Channel 1 News Hour. We shall be right back. Don't go too far.
You may be in the pit. You do not see how you could get out. But the good news is that you do not have to get by yourself. The Most High God is about to lift you out. He's about to turn the medical report. He's about to free you. He's about to open new doors, bringing new opportunities, new relationships.
Kupata The Pit, bonyeza star 811 star 967 hash. Bonyeza star 811 star 967 hash.
When you hear about Turkana County, what comes into your mind? Turkana County has more to offer than just the story of drought, and Project 254 has a different perspective, that of hope,
mchanga yetu kumbe tulikuwa nafikiri ni mbaya.
Resilience.
Twendeni sisi wote tukiwa wamama hata wasee, twendeni kwa machamba.
And restoration of dignity.
Turkana kwa wakati huu iko tofauti na Turkana mali pengine.
Only on KBC Channel 1.
Jumapili hii kwenye runinga ya KBC, ungana naye Askofu Michael Wanderi wa kanisa la Christian Foundation Fellowship Kiambu kuanzia saa 1 hadi saa 2 asubuhi.
Ningetaka nikwambie, our Jehovah God, because the Bible says he is the same yesterday, today and forevermore. He is able to take you to a place of abundance. He is able to take you to Rehoboth in the name of Jesus Christ.
Kipindi ni neno la neema, ukiletewa naye Askofu Michael Wanderi wa kanisa la Christian Foundation Fellowship Kiambu. Usikose.
My trust is in you.
Welcome back. Now on to Crime Watch. Residents of Karia village in Nyeri are in shock following news of the death of 4 people in separate incidents. In the first incident, a 36-year-old farmhand is reported to have murdered 2 women he was in a relationship with before committing suicide. In the second incident, an elderly man is reported to have been murdered by his nephew. Now Gladys Mungai with the details of the tragic deaths.
The first day of July 2020 will go down as a dark day in Karia village in Nyeri town in what can be described as double tragedy after 4 people lost their lives in tragic circumstances. Eric Mureidi's body was found dangling from an avocado tree in his homestead. The body of an identified woman was also found lying in his kitchen at 6 a.m. in the morning, while that of a woman identified as Susan Mukami was found just 200 meters away from his house at around midday. Both women had deep cuts around their neck and the back. It is suspected they were entangled in a love triangle that ended tragically. And less than a kilometer away from this homestead, tragedy had also struck. An elderly man is said to have been killed by his nephew.
Jioni tulikuwa naongea naye 6:30 hapa mambo ya hii chakula ya ng'ombe mnaona hapa nje, pia tutachukua leo tupeleke hapa kwa boma ya ng'ombe. Lakini asubuhi kuamka kuja around 6 wakati ambao niamka kuja kuangalia, pia naendelea na kama amekamua ng'ombe, nikamwita. Nikaona ng'ombe bado ukamuliwa. Nikaenda nikazunguka kwa maana anakaa nyumba yake hapa. Kuenda kwa kitchen nikakuta niliona mwanamke ameuawa huko. Sasa nikastuka sana. Nikaenda kuita mama.
Nyeri Central Deputy Commissioner Joseph Mwangi said the 82-year-old Elijah Mugo met his death after suffering deep machete cuts on his head inflicted by his 36-year-old nephew Duncan Kanini. By the old man, according to the DCC, is said to have attacked the young man with a machete, and in the ensuing fracas, the young man also suffered several minor cuts, with the old man losing his life.
Uchunguzi ili tuweze kubaini kilicho weza kuchangia vifo hizo tumepata. Kwa sasa hatuwezi speculate on anything kabla hatujafanya uchunguzi wetu. Pia katika hii usiku ambapo nalaumu shetani alitembea hapa Pia kuna mzee mwingine aliuliwa. Huyo mzee alikuwa katika ofisi zetu huko, akapata pesa za wazee. Wakati alikuja nazo, tumepata habari kwamba kijana moja aliweza kuchukua hizo pesa, naye mzee akachukua panga kumfuata huko, na ndipo furugu ilianza, na huyo kijana akaweza kumkata na kumuua huyo mzee.
Area DCC has called on residents to look for alternative ways to resolve domestic disputes and refrain from physical violence.
Sisi kitu chenye tukitaka kusema ni pole, na pia tuwasihi vijana, kuna njia nyingi sana za kusuluhisha shida zao. Hata sisi, hata mimi, hata OCPD, kila mtu anakuwa na shida zake, lakini ile la muhimu ni kucontrol anger. Ile hasira yako una control, kwa sababu unaweza leta maafa ukifanya vitu na hasira.
For Channel 1 News, I'm Gladys Mongai.
And on matters of politics, political realignments appear to be taking shape as the political class strategize ahead of the 2022 elections. Political leaders drawn from the pastoralist communities Wednesday, endorsing the recent changes effected in Parliament that saw sweeping changes in House leadership. Under the chairmanship of Garissa Senator Yusuf Haji, the leaders at the same time welcomed the appointment of Eldas Member of Parliament Aidan Canaan as the Jubilee Point Secretary, saying he remains the best suited to articulate the concerns of the pastoralist community. The development coming on a day that ODM leaders drawn from Kibra constituency hit out at ANC party for expelling Kakamega Senator Cleophas Malala from the party.
Barely a week after President's appointment of Elders MP Aidan Canaan to the powerful office of Jubilee Joint Secretary, MPs from pastoralist communities met to engage on the net effect of the changes within the ruling party. Established under Article 17 of the Jubilee Constitution, Canaan becomes the de facto coalition spokesperson, superintending parliamentary business. In addition to being President Uhuru Kenyatta's point man in both houses of parliament, Canaan will speak on coalition matters, while Secretary Generals will focus on their own parties.
Leader majority hapo zamani alikuwa ni mtu kutoka kwa wafugaji, na yeye ndio alimpatia hiyo kazi, na kwa mapenzi ya Mwenyezi Mungu imefika wakati ambao lazima atoke hapo. President angeweza kumpa hii kazi ambayo amempa Mheshimiwa Canaan kwa Mkenya yoyote ambaye anatoka pale popote katika nchi yetu tukufu ya Kenya. Lakini tumeona ya kwamba ametuheshimu, ametuonyesha mapenzi yake kwa kumpa wadhifa hiyo ya secretary ya party yetu huyu Mheshimiwa Canaan.
The pastoralists vowed to support the president's agenda, particularly on the Building Bridges initiative.
That we, the people from northern Kenya and the larger pastoralists, feel like the BBI document belongs to us, because the person chairing the BBI is none other than our super senator, our father figure, Senator Yusuf Haji. We have a lot of confidence in his leadership.
That he's making changes. We would appeal to him and request him that he can make more, we can request him to make more appointments within our regions, because we have the numbers, we are many, and we are also ready. Actually, we are ready, and like yesterday, to support him for whatever issues he wants to make, especially at this particular moment.
Elsewhere, ODM grassroots leaders from Kibra constituency have hit out at ANC party for expelling Kakamega Senator Cleophas Malala from the party.
Perplexed by the level of hypocrisy, dishonest and witch hunting being demonstrated within the ANC party. It is our considered opinion that the ANC party leadership is either being blind to political realities, or they are simply venturing into some dangerous experiments tantamount to political suicide, whose results are quite too obvious.
Meanwhile, former Machakos Senator Johnston Muthama has ditched Wiper Party and declared his unwavering support for Deputy President William Ruto's 2022 presidential bid.
I'm not the only Kenyan who is with Ruto. Central Province, they are entirely behind Ruto. Western Kenya, they are entirely behind Ruto. Wananchi Wanjiku want to vote for a good president. They are behind Ruto. Who am I to stay away from that?
Kevin Washira, Channel 1 News.
Still on COVID-19, the coronavirus pandemic has disrupted prevention and treatment services for non-communicable diseases. Though the Kenyan government has enhanced health services and infrastructure to treat people with chronic illnesses, persons living with non-communicable diseases remain at higher risk of severe COVID-19 related illnesses and death.
These are diseases which are chronic in nature, and therefore, that being the case, these conditions kind of reduces the body immunity. What I mean by the body immunity is that they brings down the level, the ability of the body to protect itself against various infections, and therefore, during this time of COVID-19, taking into account that a person living with NCD, the immunity level is not as good as that of a normal person. And therefore, the need of person living with NCD to take extra care.
Now, the coronavirus pandemic continues to ravage nations amid warnings the U.S. could record 100,000 new cases daily. This is according to the U.S. infectious disease expert Anthony Fauci, who has cautioned the citizens against failing to adhere to the safety guidelines. This comes as the global COVID-19 new cases remain on an upward trend, with the number of infected persons now standing at 10.6 million. Emily K. Bade with the global statistics as countries remain vigilant in the wake of the pandemic.
6 months after Chinese officials reported an outbreak of COVID-19 virus in a little-known Chinese city, Wuhan, the globe as we know it changed with devastating impact. Lives have been lost, hundreds of thousands hospitalized, and livelihoods lost. And just days after WHO warned we are not out of the woods yet, US-led infectious disease expert Dr. Anthony Fauci is warning of further devastation if Americans fail to adhere to the public health recommendations on COVID-19. Fauci is predicting about 100,000 infections daily if citizens violate regulations. And as the US, which has recorded the highest number of deaths, battles to contain the devastation, Germany has secured enough supplies of remdesivir. Remdesivir could become the first COVID-19 treatment approved in Europe. The country is banking on developer Gilead to meet future needs. Meanwhile, South Korea has started using remdesivir, an experimental drug originally developed for Ebola, to treat its seriously ill COVID-19 patients. Authorities in Australia, on the other hand, are in the process of locking down more than 300,000 people in suburbs north of Melbourne for a month. The move is in a bid to contain the risk of infection after 2 weeks of double-digit rises in new COVID-19 cases. Meanwhile, Beijing has lifted several lockdowns imposed to control a resurgence of the virus. It has reported just 3 new cases in the city, raising hopes that the cluster had been brought under control. Elsewhere, North Korea has reopened schools but has kept a ban on public gatherings and made it mandatory for people to wear masks in public places as part of its response to the coronavirus threat. More than 10.5 million people around the world have been diagnosed with COVID-19. At least 5.8 million people have recovered, and over 514,000 others have succumbed to the virus, according to data from Johns Hopkins University. For Channel 1 News, I am Emily K. Bade.
And on a separate matter, a video clip of Raila Odinga has surfaced online showing the former premier in good spirits after undergoing a minor surgery in the United Arab Emirates. In a video posted on his social media page, the ODM leader says he is feeling great and thanked all those who have sent him messages of goodwill.
The departure of the former premier for treatment abroad more than a week ago was a subject of debate as Kenyans sought to know his whereabouts amid concerns on the state of his health. It took a statement from his elder brother, Dr. Buru Odinga, informing the public he was undergoing a minor surgery to end speculation on his health condition. And days after he left the country, a video of the former premier has been posted online.
Everybody was talking like in ICU. How are you feeling?
In the video, the former premier donned a yellow shirt and blue shorts and appears to be in good spirits. In a post by Odinga, he says he is feeling great and thanked all those who have sent him messages of goodwill.
But I want to thank all my friends, my supporters, all our youths who have sent me so many messages of goodwill. It has just been amazing and it's just wonderful. It makes you recover so fast.
And in the characteristic Kenyan fashion, Kenyans on social media began to post videos mimicking the former premier as they sent their messages of goodwill, wishing him a quick recovery. The former premier jetted out of the country last week. For Channel 1 News, I'm Safin Aching Oma.
Well, we do wish him a quick recovery. Now, Rachel Ameso Amolo has been sworn in as a new member of the Parliamentary Service Commission. Speaking during the swearing-in ceremony, Speaker of the National Assembly Justin Muturi said her entry into the commission will provide the much-needed boost to parliamentary affairs. Ameso, who is a non-member of Parliament commissioner representing the other gender, will join former Aina Bukoi Member of Parliament Samuel Tepkonga, who is also a non-member of Parliament commissioner. She will serve for a term of 6 years.
Some speculation as to the process. Just to briefly highlight the fact that you know, even after the interviews, the Commission makes its recommendations to the two houses of Parliament, which then proceed to do their own approval processes. And I'm happy to note that the Honorable Rachel Ameso Amolo went through those processes successfully and was approved by both houses, thereby concluding the process as provided for in Article 127, whereby Parliament, meaning the two houses, duly appointed the Honorable Rachel Ameso Amolo.
I want to assure you that we are going to work together. The staff of the Parliament will work together, will sit and share and see how to take forward the Parliament of Kenya.
Moving on, farmers in Mkokoni village, Lamu County, are counting losses following invasion of their farms by wild animals. Area residents say the animals that have been straying from the nearby Kiunga National Reserve and the adjacent Boni Forest have been wreaking havoc on their farms, threatening the region's food security. Details of these and other highlights in the County News Roundup.
Over 100 farmers from Kokoni village in Lamu County have been left with little to show after a group of buffaloes invaded their farms, destroying crops that were almost ready for harvest. Maize, green grounds and cowpeas that were the only hope for them during this season have all gone to waste thanks to the wild animals that have been roaming the area.
Askari ni watatu, kuna na IP, wanatukua polisi na wakayongeza, kuna askari wa kijiji wanatukua wayongeza, lakini wao wanasema wao havana. Kwa hapo mashamba yetu yamemalizika. Kilote yetu ni mashamba. Mimi mwaka mzima mapato yangu ni sasa sina kitu.
Elsewhere, The Samburu County government has introduced incentives for pregnant women seeking maternity services in the region's health facilities. The initiative that will now see mothers issued with gift bags seeks to encourage those who are pregnant to deliver in hospitals.
Ningependa kuambia wamama wale wanajifungulia nyumbani wasijifungue nyumbani, wakuja wajifungue hospitali, maana hospitali unapata matibabu mazuri, unashughulikiwa vizuri.
And construction works for the 540-kilometer Mau Mau Road have resumed after they were halted following the outbreak of the COVID-19 disease. The project, estimated to cost 30 billion shillings, is set to traverse Kiambu, Nyeri, Nyahururu and Muranga counties, covering Mau Mau operational routes, and its implementation is also in commemoration of the Mau Mau freedom fighters who are credited with fighting for the liberation of the country.
We are going to open up those areas where agriculture is being done intensively, but food has not been reaching the market. And once those routes will be done, then the food will be able to reach the market at the right time.
The National Museums of Kenya is constructing a 60 million shilling seawall to protect the historic Vasco da Gama pillar located in the tourist resort town of Malindi from erosion. The Vasco da Gama pillar, built by the great Portuguese explorer Vasco da Gama, is the oldest remaining European monument in tropical Africa and has been put at risk by strong tidal waves. The project that kicked off last month is currently 25% complete.
The erosion of icebergs in both the Arctic and Antarctica, the sea levels have been rising, and as a result, all those properties and areas around the ocean have been suffering. So one of those effects is the erosion of the base of Vasco da Gama pillar.
And over 600 employees from the West Kenya sugarcane millers have taken to the streets to demonstrate what they are saying is illegal dismissal by the employer. The employees are also alleging mistreatment by the employer and lack of promotions at the workplace.
Tunapofanya kazi, tunasikia mahali pengine wanasema kwamba kuna kazi imefanyika, eti ugonjwa imekuweko, na sisi tumefanya kazi kila wakati. 24 hours we are working.
Finally, Narok County Commissioner Samuel Kimiti has ordered the Children Department to take a database of all street children in the county in a bid to rehabilitate them. Speaking during a breakfast with some of the children held at PCA Boys Children's Home, Kimiti said most of the children are from vulnerable backgrounds and returning them to their biological homes will do little to resolve their problems.
Kila mtoto ako hapo apatiwe haki zake, na tukumbuke wengine hata ni wasichana, na wakiwa ni wasichana kuna hatari ya mimba, kuna hatari ya kuwa defiled, na kwa hivyo ni jukumu letu kama society kuondoe watoto wale wako kwa street.
Yusuf Farah, Channel 1 News.
Let's talk business, where the government is seeking to mobilize 125.61 billion shillings in the next 5 years to turn the National Youth Service into a profitable state corporation. Now, this will be achieved through technical and vocational training for Kenyan youth, with focus on enterprise development and commercialization of STEM activities. ICT, Innovation and Youth Affairs Cabinet Secretary Joe Musheru says bankable innovation will be funded for mass market.
Youth innovation in the form of an electric tuk-tuk, a simple but effective transport solution at a time when the country seeks to create employment through sustainable growth in innovation. For more innovation like these to come to fruition, the youth have been called upon to alleviate society's challenges in order to lead the country to industrialization.
This project was actually facilitated by the government through the National Youth Service, facilitated in terms of resources, in terms of manpower, and also in terms of space.
We want to ensure and that the youth are aware that we are doing everything we can to provide you with the environment that will work for you, and that support is clear even with the innovations that you're seeing here. And we're happy that the National Youth Service is continuing to employ young people and create the discipline that is actually needed.
Speaking during the unveiling of Sustainable Youth Innovation and the new 2019-2024 National Youth Service Strategic Plan, the CS for ICT, Innovation and Youth Affairs, Joe Mushero, said the government is targeting to increase financial and opportunity access to innovations which will accelerate attainment of the Sustainable Development Goals.
It's indeed a great day that innovation is being celebrated in this country. And many of us, in the many things that we experience every day, the many challenges, those are the challenges that we take to be able to innovate. In the way that we solve those challenges, that is how we are able to come up with the new innovations. And those innovations help and improve the quality of lives of those that come after, or those that you're even working with.
Public Service and Gender CS Professor Margaret Kobia further backed the plan to turn NYS into a profitable corporation through provision of employment opportunities for the youth and enhancing the inclusion in national development.
While we are still launching the plan and appreciating the much work that has gone in discussing what needs to be done, we also need to reflect that a strategic plan is a document of intent. We need to move further and be able to implement. And we always say preparation of the strategic plan is 10% of the whole task. Implementation of it is 90%.
The NYS strategic plan needs 125.61 billion shillings. In the current financial year, NYS was allocated 10.2 billion shillings.
Imagine not having to drag a handcart or push it through a whole slope just because you have goods on it and you are powering it by your own will. Behold, the innovations of the youth of today have unveiled a battery-powered mkokoteni, will you believe it? Here in Nairobi. Alan Naoko reporting for Channel on Business in Nairobi.
Well, thank you so much, Alan Naoko, for that report. Now, the number of locally registered domains has declined by 0.36% between January and March, blamed on coronavirus. Now, latest statistics from the Communications Authority shows that registered business domains dropped by 337 in what the authority attributes to slow businesses. Active mobile subscription in the country also rose to 55.2 million, translating to a penetration rate of 116%.
It has been a tough business operating environment for many businesses in the country as the impact of COVID-19 takes toll on the Kenyan economy. Before Kenya reported its first case of coronavirus in March, the country has been feeling the impact since December last year when the pandemic was battering the Chinese economy. According to the Communications Authority, there has been a reduction in the number of registered domain, with the number of domain falling from 91,940 reported during the October to December 2019 quarter to 91,603 domains during the first 3 months of this year. During the third quarter ending March this year, the number of active registered mobile money subscriptions stood at 29.1 million, while the number of active mobile money agents stood at 202,102. Outgoing mobile voice traffic increased by 2.3% during the quarter under review to post 15.3 billion from 14.9 billion minutes posted in the last quarter. The total broadband subscriptions increased by 0.9% during the period under review to record 22.3 million from 22 million subscriptions recorded during the previous period. Mobile broadband subscriptions accounted for 97.6% of the total broadband subscriptions. Courier traffic dropped as communication moved online, coupled with the end of busy festive season, while the number of letters posted locally declined by 19.3% to 8.5 million letters from 10.5 million letters posted in the previous quarter.
And Kenya has been awarded the World Travel and Tourism Council Safe Travel Stamp as preparations to reopen the tourism and hospitality industry after months of closure enter the final stages. Now, Tourism and Wildlife Cabinet Secretary Najib Balala says the stamp is crucial in helping the sector bounce back after collapse due to COVID-19. Balala, however, warned that international arrivals could take a while to recover.
Arising from the pandemic, the tourism and wildlife sectors are experiencing unprecedented health and social economic crisis due to the movement restrictions imposed by the government to curb the spread of the virus.
So there's a new business in town. We are in the business of tourism. We are in the business of learning health. We are in the business of managing police. But the other new business is the business of saving lives.
Already the restrictions have wiped out 80 billion shillings from tourism receipts. The protocols launched will provide guidance for the tourism sector's reopening.
Thoroughly gone through in partnership with the private sector to formulate these protocols. They have been approved by the Ministry of Health of Kenya. They've been approved by the World Tourism and Travel Council and the UNWTO. Today, we can say Kenya is safe and the magic awaits you.
To meet this recognition, Kenya had sent the protocols drafted by the National Tourism and Hospitality Protocols Task Force to the World Travel and Tourism Council and the World Tourism Organization for validation in line with the global reopening of tourism and travel protocols.
These protocols are very important to recover the trust from the traveler, and WTTC is giving you the Safe Traveler stamp because they are at the level of the global private sector.
Tourism and Wildlife Cabinet Secretary Najib Balala says the protocols seek to achieve institutional, operational and staff preparedness to ensure service provision meets required guidelines aimed at preventing the spread of COVID-19.
We will remain very committed to supporting this sector even as we work on revival strategies.
The sector is staring at massive losses due to travel restrictions, and as such, to remain afloat, industry players a safe experience for visitors, rebuild trust and confidence, and implement enabling policies to jumpstart business in the tourism sector. Regina Manyara reporting for Channel 1 Business.
And away from that, Agriculture Ministry has identified goat rearing as key to increasing milk production in the country and income among smallholder farmers. Saki Youth Group in Molo, Nakuru County are the latest beneficiaries of the National Agricultural and Rural Inclusive Growth Project, which has helped supply farmers with a high-yielding Kenya Alpine goat breed. Now, the countrywide project is being funded to the tune of 22.6 billion shillings. In the heart of the Chili Sechangwan location within Molo sub-county, 12 youthful women are sweating it out on some tiny farm feeding dairy goats. The members of Saki Youth Group are beneficiaries of national government-backed National Agricultural and Rural Inclusive Growth Project dairy goat rearing program that seeks to improve the livelihoods of women and youth groups in rural parts of Nakuru.
Kwa hii mradi ya NARIG tuliingia wakati tulikuwa tunapata mafunzo kupitia kwa Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries. Wakatuambia kuna mradi inakuja, tukaandika proposal, tukaqualify kupata mbuzi 1,100.
Chairperson of the group, Ruth Namale, says through the program, members have received training on home-based manufacture of value-added goat products such as pasteurized milk, yogurt, butter and cheese.
Mbuzi wenye tulinunuliwa ni wale wa hali ya juu tunawaita kwa kizungu pedigree goats, dairy goats. Walitunulia mbuzi wenye ni wajawazito, tunaendelea kulisha pamoja.
The women group has seen an increase in demand for goat milk with a litre retailing at 140 shillings.
Tunaona kwa vijana itatusaidia kwa kupata mapato. Ndio tunatarajia tukue breeders wa mbuzi area hii ya Molo sub-county. Itatuajiri vijana. Alafu tunataka kama kikundi kila mmoja kuwe na mbuzi yake ya maziwa. Ndio tunaona mara hii ng'ombe inahitaji sehemu kubwa, mbuzi inahitaji sehemu kubwa ya kulisha.
Saki is one of the 20 youth groups in Molo sub-county with a total membership of over 500 members that have received funding for the rearing of high-yielding Kenya Alpine dairy goats. Currently, the youth group has 5 pedigree dairy goats, each producing a maximum of 3 litres and which constitute a breeding stock. Nakuru is one of the 21 counties that are beneficiaries of the project that has been allocated 22.6 billion shillings, targeting 360,000 smallholder farmers countrywide.
Next on.
Ngoja naulize jamaa, nani hapa hivi amepimwa hivi majuzi?
Pale kwa Mwangi, si ni 10 bob.
Sijasema kupimwa weight. Saa hizi kupimwa HIV ni haraka na ni bure.
Bouncing on a trampoline helps you get fit physically, while bouncing into God's word helps you get fit spiritually.
I know of your conversion story and the gentleman that spoke to you, but I'm interested to know about this first performance of Are You Ready to Get Down with Jesus Christ tonight?
Yo, man. Kukuwa na HIV si eti ni mwisho.
Wewe uko nayo?
Mimi nilishapima.
Afya bora, maisha bora. Jipime, jiinue.
Hamjambo wa Kenya wenzangu. Mimi ni Mheshimiwa Mize. Ninalotaka kuambia ni kuwasihi ya kwamba corona iko. Na ili tupigane nayo na tuishinde. Ukikohoa, tafadhali kama una ile ya kujifunika ile tissue, weka mkono hapa. Kama ni chafya yako acho na itabakia pale pale. Kama ni kukohoa yako koholea hapo. Na nakwambia tukizingatia sheria na tuitii, hii corona tutaishinda na nchi yetu tutarudi kama kawaida.
This weekend on KBC Channel 1.
As long as it does not involve someone dying, I am in.
Why would you even think of that?
Ngalo, experience prepares you for the worstest.
Why do you like praying on innocent souls? One day, I know you'll meet my head.
Let me tell you, my brother, all I am asking is you to give Caesar what belongs to Caesar. Okay?
This can't be your plan.
We present this to the dean. This will warrant her layoff.
Yes, I know, I'm sorry. I ran into a little trouble, okay? And stop calling me that, we are not peers.
Oh, we are not peers, eh? Maybe I should let your peers help you.
Classmates, every Saturday on KBC.
Welcome back. Now, in the sports arena, Gor Mahia have revealed the forthcoming elections will be conducted through the electronic voting method owing to the coronavirus pandemic. Now, the Kenya Premier League Giants confirmed yesterday that they had picked 8th of August as the new date to conduct the exercise and elect new officials to run the club for the next 4 years. Gor Mahia chairman Ambrose Rache confirmed the exercise will be conducted through electronic voting if the pandemic will not be contained by then, and only registered members will be allowed to cast their votes. And the 2021 Africa Cup of Nations has been postponed to January 2022 by the Confederation of African Football as a result of the coronavirus pandemic, while the women's version of the tournament has been cancelled. The men's tournament had been set to take place in January next year.
Next year's Africa Cup of Nations has been postponed to January 2022 by the Confederation of African Football due to the coronavirus pandemic, while the women's tournament has been cancelled. The Africa Nation Championship CHAN, which should have been played in April, will now take place in January 2021. Cameroon will host both competitions. The decision means the biannual tournament will now be held in the same year as the 2022 World Cup, something that last happened in 2010. It was moved to odd-numbered years in 2013, that year's tournament only coming a year after the previous one, to avoid such clashes which risk disadvantaging African teams at the World Cup by giving them such an extended season of competition. Traditionally held in January, the most recent Africa Cup of Nations in 2019 was moved to the summer in an effort to avoid clashing with the major European League competitions. This was meant to be the case for the Cameroon tournament as well, but that was then changed back to January owing to climate conditions in the country and a potential clash with the Club World Cup. The move means that defending Premier League champions Liverpool will play all of next season without losing their key strike force of Senegal's Sadio Mane and Egypt's Mohamed Salah to international duty. Meanwhile, the cancellation of the Women's Africa Cup of Nations comes as a little surprise, given the tournament had no host while not one qualifier had been played. There was a boost for the women's game, however, with the launch of a new Women's Champions League for Africa in 2021.
Well, thank you so much for keeping us company here on Channel 1. That's it for tonight. My name is Jackie Wambiru. Our sign language interpreter was Lensa Odingo. I leave you in the good hands of Irene Machuma with more details on the weather updates. Well, remember to adhere to government's directive so as to curb the spread of the coronavirus. Have a good night.
Great Wambiru, the month of July is here with us again, one that is characterized with cold weather conditions. How prepared are you? Good evening and a warm welcome to Channel 1 Weather Update. My name is Irene Mchuma Odim. Scattered showers accompanied by thunderstorms are currently being experienced over the Lake Basin region, western parts of the country and northwestern parts of the country. This, as the rest of the country, experience partly cloudy conditions, and that is how it will be for the rest of the night. For us in the capital, we'll wake up to a cool and cloudy morning. Equally in Nyeri and Meru, wet conditions will be experienced over the coastal strip. This, as the rest of the country experience sunny conditions, even new in the southeastern lowlands. In the afternoon, a totally different scenario from what we experienced today. Kisii, Kericho, Kitale, Eldoret, Bungoma, moving all the way to the northwestern parts of the country. We're expecting showers accompanied by thunderstorms over a few places. The northeastern parts of the country and southeastern lowlands will experience sunny conditions, but for you in Lamu, Mombasa, and Malindi, expect showers over a few places. Temperatures in the capital will range between 24 degrees Celsius and 13 degrees Celsius. The highest temperatures across the country will be experienced in Lodwar and Mandera at 35 degrees Celsius. Let's now cross the borders and see how it will be in other parts of the world. Do have a good night and see you tomorrow, God willing.